All right, YouTube, we're back. We're going to be starting a series on the first form, Sil Lim Tao. We're going to break this down into the 3 sections, okay? We're going to start with the first section first. It's not so much of the sequence that I want to go over with you, but as far as what the movements behind the sequences are. My first teacher had said it great. He had said that over time that the form will start to speak to you. The form has been the same movements for me over the last, God knows how many years, and it's always been the same, but things have constantly revealed themselves to me. The way that, I look at things are, it's like we're all taking an art class, and all of us are given the exact same paintbrush, same paints, same canvas, same lighting, and same bowl of fruit that we're all going to wind up painting. But based off of everybody's perception, they're going to do things differently. They're going to mix their paints differently. They're going to wind up seeing a different, glare of the light shining on an apple. Everything's going to be differently. Some people are going to use the bristle end of the brush. Some people are going to use the stick end of the brush to paint. There's just so many ways to do art. Remember, this is a martial art. So you can find the first form anywhere online. And so many people do it differently. And there's a lot of subtle differences. All I want to go over is the terminology, and then what I've discovered through the movement, and what I'm focusing on during the form. Remember, this is my Wing Chun. Agree with me, disagree with me. It's your job to make this your own. We all get the same movements, but ask your teachers, ask yourself, discover this form for yourself. In the very beginning, what you saw me do was I opened the form. I take both hands, I chamber, I drop my weight slightly, I bend my knees slightly, and then I go in my Yiji Kim Young Ma stance, which is to open my toes, and then open up my toes, my heels again, and then I settle and sink down. What I'm focusing on in this part is my stance. And when I talk about my stance, it's not so much my feet as it is my hips in relationship to the rest of my body. When I think of this stance, I think of myself as a tripod. And I tell people when we are Wing Chun, we're doing Wing Chun, we're a weapon. I'm a 50 caliber machine gun. Now I'm the gun, but I'm useless without the ammunition. Learning the first form is giving me position and ammunition. So in this form, what I'm doing, and again, considering the fact that I'm flat-footed, I'm staying rooted. My goal is to take my 2 hips and drive them forward and down into the ground and forming the 3rd leg of my tripod. I do that by squeezing my butt cheeks, forcing my hip flexors forward, and paying attention to my adductors on the inside of my legs. Abductors are on the outside of the legs. Adductors are on the inside. With my feet, I am constantly aware of the position moving from my big toe to the instep of my feet to am I distributing my weight to the outside, inside. I'm trying to feel every part of from my abs down. I also sit there, and from a side view, you'll see that I'm not straight. I tuck these hips under, forming that tripod forward, and I form an abscess. I form a hole in my midsection. So I want to draw that energy back. It's a counterbalance going forward and then keeping this in and down. So there's a lot going on and paying attention to the stance. The very first movement we do is we define center fighting line. I come down and forward. From a side view, I come down and forward. I'm learning from the very beginning that my energies are going down and forward. Okay? My elbow distance is natural. It's a fist and a half length away from my body. I do allow my shoulders to come forward. Again, forming that void. I want that void. Okay? Then I don't just come up and I don't come forward. I come up and forward. Up and forward. So in the very first section, we're learning two energies in opposite directions. Down and forward and up and forward. And I allow myself down and forward to recess in a little bit and then go forward. Again, my shoulders out. This is teaching me off the bat that my weapons, I can form a big, like I'm holding a giant fitness ball, that I'm comfortable with this in this balance. My hips are pointed down. My hips are pointed in an opposite direction. My elbows are allowing this void here, and my shoulders are going forward. Some Wing Chun people, and you will hear the influences that have made me reevaluate my form. Like Jin Young, my colleague, will talk about keeping that elbow back. I don't. I keep my elbow going, the shoulder back. I keep my shoulder going forward. In my interpretation, I will come down and forward, and I allow the space here. I don't move this. Here's that fist and a half length away from my body. I will move my shoulder forward to give me further projection. Again, allowing that voided space. I want that. The counterbalance for being so far extended is me understanding from the beginning that my adductors and hip flexors force down into the ground, rooting me, and I sit and I sink. That's what's keeping me from being so far extended and pulling out of my stance. After we define our center fighting line, down and forward, up and forward, we chamber both hands. The entire time I'm doing this, I'm focused on just below my chest and down. They're activated. I'm tense. I'm flexing. I'm squeezing. I'm bearing down. I'm always focusing on it. I'm going to set up my first punch. I take my fist, put it right on my sternum. My elbow is flared out to the side. In this position now, I think of a pool cue. When we play pool, I don't take that pool cue and hit it with the tip. I hit it with the rear end, and I guide with the tip with my lead hand. I'm setting up the direction I want to punch, which is forward. I put my intent in my elbow based on my stance, and I feed that elbow down. Now, I said earlier that I'm a .50 caliber machine gun. This is my tripod. Your weapons, your barrels that the bullets are firing out of are 1, 2, 3, and 4. We do use shoulders. We can use a headbutt. Can use knees. But for right now, when we're learning the form, our weapons are out our wrist and out our elbows. The entire time that I'm in this, I want to focus on my hips, the relationship of drawing that energy up, and then taking that elbow and pushing it out. As I go forward, I am focused on the opposite hip, supporting underneath here, and pushing forward. That prevents me from drifting back. So I'm engaging this forward. This hip flexor is pushing down, forward, and I'm going forward. My hands are never clenched. I'm pretending I'm holding a little baby bird in my hand. From here, I only come out a fist and a half length away. My shoulder extends a little bit forward. I tan sao, yun sao, grab. Then I put my intent back in my elbow, and with that elbow, I pull it back. Keeping the shoulder down, I pull it back. As I pull back, any motion I do back, I'm focused on the same side hip. Same side hip. Okay? Again, Jin Young. Very, very influential with me on me discovering my hip movement. Okay? And everything we do on the left side, we do on the right side. Punch forward. Tan sao. Yun sao. Put all that intent based on your tripod and pull that in. The Fuk Sao section, you're going to see me do two different Wu Saos. The first one, I start with Tan Sao. Again, put all that intent in that elbow. Going forward, my opposite hip supports. I go down 3/4 of the length. My elbow is close to center as possible. This is training, not application. The first Wu Sao that I do, I roll the Yun Sao. From this position, my intent is always forward, forward, forward. I don't come out Yun back. I don't do that. Me personally, not back, forward. The first position that I do is keeping this elbow going forward. I'm constantly projecting energy going forward while pulling the wrist back to my sternum. My back muscle is supporting that shoulder and elbow going forward, and I'm allowing this to collapse without collapsing. It's not tense, the muscle's soft, but the intent is going forward for both of these. After this position, I relax, allow this elbow to reclaim center line, and I fook south forward. My fook is relaxed. It is not turned on. It's relaxed. That's one. The second one, I'm holding it forward. Again, going forwarding energy. I'm taking this elbow and I'm pulling it back. Now I'm pulling the elbow back because it's pulling the wrist back. Two, pulling that elbow back as far as it goes until the sternum touches. Fook sao again. Again. Letting that elbow stay forward, drawing this hand back. Relaxing. Fook sao forward, pushing the elbow forward. Now drawing that elbow back. So we do 4, 2 and 2. After we get to that last one, I relax, pak sao forward and diagonally so that my wrist is on line with where my shoulder and pec meet. Then I return to center, palm strike forward, tan sao, yun sao, chamber, and then repeat on the other side. That's the movement. Some of the things that I found in the very first section of the first form is all about storing internal energy. I read an article, and I believe this was by David Peterson in Wing Chun Illustrated, that talks about that the reason that we do the fook sao section so many times, and again, I'm paraphrasing, I don't have the article for reference, and if I'm misquoting, I extremely apologize, sir, but was to acknowledge the fact that with forwarding energy, we can negate incoming energy to the outside gate and the inside gate. Makes sense to me. That's why we do it 3 times. I read another article that said that, we do this. I was told this by a colleague, a teacher of mine, who had said that he heard from Ip Ching, again, and this is hearsay, so it's not from his mouth, that the reason why we do this so slow at this speed is because we're spot projecting intent. I want to focus on all the areas in between my elbow and wrist. To develop elbow energy, honestly, in my personal opinion, all you have to do is understand the relationship between the elbow and the rest of your body. How you do that, you do that. I know that if you see the video of me, and I'm doing the wide grip hammer strength, the reason that I'm able to do, 5 plates on each side, or I'm able to train very heavy or pull weights in, is because I understand the relationship between the elbow and the rest of my body. How that got was just feeling. I understand how my lat also helps push forward, not just my tricep, shoulder, and pec. My lat pulls back, but so do my abs and my hips. It's the elbow in relationship to the rest of your body. My first teacher also told me that if you do the form quietly enough, in a very quiet space, you will feel energy sucked up from the earth. And I went, oh, that's bullshit. I don't believe that stuff. It was 2002. I'm in my condo, doing the form. And with every breath, I can feel the energy like a belt feed of ammunition rising up, going up my spine, storing in my core, waiting to be fired out. So where I'm paying attention is on this area. I'm following the idea that you have to keep as close to center line as possible. You're being aware of your center line. There's so much that I'm doing. I read an article too that said that the reason that Ip Man, did this at such a slow pace was to get his students to stay in their horse longer. Okay, there's so many different areas of why we do this. I will tell you flat out that I've been training Wing Chun informally since 1998, and never once have I taken more than 5 minutes to do the form. I don't have that kind of time to spend an hour feeding this down, paying attention to everything. But I do pay attention to everything. My pace is this pace. And I want to be aware of the relationship where I put this forward energy forward, how this affects my hip, how this affects my shoulder, my abs and my lats together, my other hip now that's engaged, this hip, drifting back without drifting back, facing forward, My feet that are dug into the ground, my hip flexors and adductors that are still making that tripod going forward, my butt cheeks, all of this, that are all engaged for one movement. Support of the elbow, which supports the wrist, which is where we're getting that energy out. If our main goal is to deliver all of our body mass and energy into a person, into a punch, the energy has to go into somebody. That's easy. But when you hit another object, that energy also has to come back to you. Are you fully prepared to understand how this energy affects the rest of your body and what is immediately going to turn on and off? When you do any kind of skill and you take your time on it over and over and over again, it becomes second nature. So as slow as I do the form, I'm still aware of every single part of my body as I'm doing this. And there's so much more that I'm going to forget for this. I don't want to make this a very long video. I want to sit there and give you ideas of what the form in the first section, second section, third section, I am focusing on while I'm doing it. So again, some of the key components that I'm focusing on are when I am in this very first movement and I'm setting up my stance and I breathe in chamber, I am thinking of myself as a suction cup that is getting adhered to the ground. I'm drawing energy up and I'm adhering myself right flat to the ground. And I'm opening, boom, and now I'm one with the ground and I'm pulling up my ammunition. Just because I'm that 50 caliber machine gun, I'm useless without ammunition. My belt feed is now engaged and it's coming up through my spine, going out my shoulders and firing forward. And the recoil's got to be absorbed. My tansao, my fingers are going forward. I'm projecting that energy constantly coming up through my core, spine, aligned out my shoulder, through my forearm, and right out my middle finger towards my target. My next target, pisiform bone, going forward with the support of the elbow going forward. And the muscles that are supporting here are not my shoulder, but I'm understanding that I can put that mental intent and focus in my forearm. And as I'm pushing back, it goes into my lat and hip and butt cheek and supported instep of the other foot as I pull this back. Or as I leave it forward and pull this back. Because if counterbalance came in, I would get toppled over if I didn't think sync, root, support, off. You have to discover your entire body with the first form. It's not just a series of movements. The sequences may change, varied from school to school. I don't know. My form is slightly different than from Syed's. Syed will satsao, tansao, yunsao. And his fuksao is very engaged but relaxed at the same time. And he puts energy in different spots. He is not as rooted as I am. He's very natural and relaxed. I've seen Ed and Ken from Windy City Wing Chun who do beautiful dissections of the form. They are very relaxed for mobility. Keep in mind, my wrestling background, my height, my power base tells me to stay rooted in the ground. The form only tells me to stay rooted. It doesn't tell me stay on my heels. Because in my application of a punch, after that shift is done, I am not on my heel on my back leg. I'm on the ball of my foot. My heel is raised this much because it allows me to put my hip into it, my other hip into it, and then push my energy forward, ready to go. Push my forward energy, ready to go. I'm forming that big hole of a void coming in while I'm recessing back and punching forward at the same time, which allows me more mobility, structure, and stability. Granted, you get hit in the face, game changes. You get a well-placed punch and your central nervous system is going to take over and shut down. All your rooting is going to go out the window. There's training and there's application. There's a lot to the form. And my main suggestion is do your movements over and over and over and feel what it means to you. It's not about understanding, oh, look, here comes a punch and I'm going to pretend I'm going to parry it off to the side and then strike him in the throat. No, it is pak-sawing, understanding how far you go without feeling your shoulders too far extended. And then understanding that elbow from this position has got to... I actually filled the card on the last one, so we had to continue. But I was talking about the fact that you're learning counterbalance by extending far forward as your arm allows you to do, shoulder out of its socket, while you have your tripod holding you into place. So that if you get lopsided from your so far overextension, you have that counterbalance to stay rooted. If you're here and you're jammed up, you're learning to stay jammed and absorb that in by recessing your core and not collapsing in. There's so much about you that you have to discover in the form is the whole point of this. It is not just a series of movements. And that's my argument with a lot of other martial arts, or not a lot of martial arts, with and again, not to be offensive ever, but like with Jeet Kune Do, who doesn't, I don't know. Some of you guys do understand why we do the first form, some don't. A lot of people in the Wing Chun did not understand why we do the first form. Some do. Some will give you so many different pointers that I won't give you that I'll watch and go, I completely agree with that. So you have to find out what the form means for you. Get the blueprints, get the groundwork, understand the movements, and then find out what it means to you. Examine your whole body, and it's so easy to do. When you wind up doing any drill, any exercise, you could do a push-up and understand how push-ups affect your quads. You do curl, feel how curls affect your abs. You want to do running, feel running and how it affects the rest of your body. Any movement you do, you open a door, feel how that affects the rest of your body. You wind up, brushing your teeth. What's the relationship between your calf and winding up focusing on that, your toothbrush? So it is going back to very much Sun Tzu and the Art of War, where if you know your enemy, know yourself, you win every battle. The goal is to focus on yourself. You are learning yourself in the first form. It is all your tool to understand every single part of your body so that you can use it in the context of delivering energy into somebody. And once that energy is delivered, taking that energy back and then being able to deliver that energy again. Movement. You are learning how to move in the first form. You're learning how to be able to move and stay in your structure. Be moved out of your structure, collapse out of your structure, torn out of your structure. The first form is all about you. And in the first section, in my opinion, you are learning to draw energy up. You're learning the elbow in relation to the rest of your body, the elbow in relation to your wrist, your core, your hip flexors going into the ground, your feet, and you are starting to store that belt feed ammunition. I know I went very long on this. We can cover a whole week on this, but for right now, I want to give you some of these things. We'll revisit it again. Next week, I'm going to do the second section. And I'm going to show you what I got from the second section. So for the highlights of this, the first form is understanding the tripod of your stance, focusing on your adductors, hip flexors, glutes, quads, instep, toe, heel, your elbow position, energy in opposite directions, down and forward, up and forward, the use of the shoulder, forward or back, the use of forwarding energy while you're drawing a hand back, forwarding energy all the time. Understanding how that elbow drives that wrist forward. This is your pull cue. Pulling it forward, pushing it forward. Understanding where your body goes before this muscle says, no, we don't want to go any further. Oh, I'm going to bring that back a little bit. Understanding the void you are trying to make to get that power going forward and staying in a stance. There's so much with the first form. Storing energy up. And we're going to continue on the next video. I hope this made sense.